I'll end up with 3 in the first round and probably 1 in the top 10. If you're wanting one of those, the top edge guys, you're probably going to have to go up.
Appreciate you streamers here on Birds 365. McMullen, McDonald, and our next guest, who first things first, I need to apologize to him because he was sitting here waiting to join us, kind of like on hold for a radio show. I got off on a little bit of a tangent on punting and going for it on fourth down. So we start with an apology for Brian Bosarge from draftcountdown.com. Brian, number one, thanks for joining the show. And number two, my apologies.
Hey, no apologies necessary. Thanks for having me, guys. And it was interesting debate, and I'm on the side of go for it, by the way, in case you were wondering where I sat in that. But I'm also advocating for drafting Matt Araiza as high as the late third round, by the way. So
you can't have them both. You got to go one way or the other.
I do think Brian is right. I think Matt is going to be a third round pick. If you go back, I think Brian Anger was the last third round punter. He's a heck of a lot better than that. I think as a prospect, I think somebody's going to take it, but it's going to be an old school mentality team. It's not going to be the Eagles. It's not going to be the Chargers. It's going to be somebody. You know, if Mike Zimmer can get another job, who wants to flip the field, that's who it's going to be with Matt Araiza. Brian, would you think that way?
How about a former Zimmer assistant, Kevin Stefanski in Cleveland, with their
there we go.
Pick 97, I believe they have in the third round.
Yeah, that would make more sense.
That might not go over in the dog pound because they're going to go, wait a minute. Didn't we just give Deshaun Watson $250 million and we're not going for it on fourth down? No, what? We got a punter. We're paying Deshaun all this money. Give the ball on fourth down.
Well, let's start at the more interesting part. And it starts this year. Usually by this time, Brian, we know who the number one overall pick is going to be. We don't know this year for a couple reasons. I mean, Jacksonville, I always joke, Tony Khan's too worried about his wrestling promotion to worry about the NFL. But so you have a badly run organization, number one. You have a number one overall pick. They already got, it's back-to-back number ones. They already got Trevor Lawrence. They're not looking for a quarterback. Quarterback wouldn't be in the mix anyway. So you start talking about edge rushers, potentially offensive tackle. What's your favorite flavor? If you're the Jacksonville Jaguars, put your Jags hat on, Brian. Who's your number one overall pick?
Well, first of all, I'm hating the fact that there is no quarterback worth taking at the number one pick because they could have sold that pick for a bounty, and they can't do that now. I feel like right now, just based off of all the mock drafts I've seen, the mock drafts I've done, we've done at Draft Countdown, it seems to be it's one of three players I feel is like on the board now. It's going to be Aiden Hutchinson from Michigan, which I think is probably the most likely, probably 60% chance I would put that at about right now. And one of the other offensive tackles, either Ike Mekwonu from NC State or Evan Neal from Alabama. I think that's the three players that I could see them going with. Me personally, I would go with one of the tackles, probably Evan Neal, if I had to go with that today. But I can see why they would want Aiden Hutchinson. I think you're going to get consistent sack production from him. He's a tremendous athlete and going to be a great leader for your team, a team that probably needs some guys to step up in that capacity.
So you're not going to buy, sorry, Jody, you're not going to buy Trayvon Walker at the top of this draft?
I can't see it. I mean, I like Trayvon Walker's upside and what he can bring, but I don't know that I would take him at one. I did splash a little cash on that because the odds were the odds were pretty good. I
think that says a lot, Brian. Yeah, if you splash a little cash on something, that says a lot.
Well, let me say this: I'll put some money on 4 different players, not Aiden Hutchinson, to be the number one pick in the draft. The juice was pretty good for all of those guys.
Fair enough. All right, then how many, if you're splashing cash, I'm going to ask you to give me your prediction on the top 6. If I tell you the top 6 players in this draft are going to be linemen, 3 offensive linemen, 3 defensive linemen. What's the percentage chance I get that right? 6 for 6, top 6 picks in the draft, D-line or offensive line. Is that over a 50% chance, a 30% chance? What's the percentage chance that we go trenches for the first, count them, 6 picks of the draft?
Very high, I would say. Over 50%, I think, is there. The only things that could upset the apple cart to me right now is, do the Giants go with corner at 5 over an offensive tackle, or do the Panthers decide we're going to go with a quarterback? That's the only things in the top 6 I think could alter that, what you just said. I think, like I said Equano, Charles Cross, Evan Neal, Thibodeau, Trayvon Walker, Aiden Hutchinson, all those guys could go 1 through 6, no doubt.
I see Jody getting an idea. You're going to go to the app right now and splash some cash on that. 6 for 6 at the top of the draft. Now, one of the things,
haven't found that bet yet. I will go looking for it, though. You're right.
Quarterbacks kind of run this league. Let's be honest, Brian. So it's not a great quarterback class, and quarterbacks are going to get pushed up the board. The question is how high. How many quarterbacks do you have going in the first round, and how many do you have going, if any, in the top 10?
Probably when my final mock draft comes out, which will be the day of the draft. I'll end up with 3 in the first round and probably 1 in the top 10. I personally will not have any quarterback with a first round grade on my board. Not going to happen. 0. They will all be outside of my top 32. But that's going to happen. It's like you said, it's a quarterback league. If you don't got one, you got to get one. So you're going to see Malik Willis and Kenny Pickett, I think for sure, be drafted in the first round. I think Desmond Ritter's the hot name to be that 3rd quarterback taken in the first round right now. I think all 3 of them could actually be off the board by the time the Steelers pick at pick 20. I think you could see 3 in the top 20. Especially if Carolina decides to go with a quarterback, be it Willis, be it Pickett. There is a connection with Pickett to Matt Rule, as he recruited him to Temple before he ultimately signed with Pitt.
Yeah.
And I think the Saints, if Willis were to be on the board with one of their 2 picks now, could be of interest to them as well. And then Pittsburgh, their infatuation with Malik Willis is well known at this point. Mike Tomlin's almost stalked him for like every pre-draft process we've seen up to this point. But I think they also like Desmond Ridder. And I think, Kenny Pickett being in the same building that they played in, would also be of interest to them as well. They're going to get a quarterback in the first round. I think that's one of the only, for sure, team positions that I feel comfortable with as Steelers quarterback in the first round.
All right, this is a good time to ask this question. I've done it, I think, with all the draft guys we've had on over the last several weeks. You just mentioned no quarterback in your just pure grading system is in the top 32 in this draft. Where's Kyle Hamilton? Because the 2 guys you're talking to are big fans, think he could be the best football player in the draft, plays a position that might decrease the value of the player as compared to the quarterbacks, where the position increases the value of the player. Where do you have Hamilton graded, and where do you have him coming off the board?
He's my number 4 overall player in this draft class. One of the best players on the field, on tape. You're going to see he alters the game from his safety position. One of the best safeties I've scouted in a long time. As far as where he's, and I don't know why the NFL seems to devalue the safety position when it comes to draft capital. I mean, they're one of the more high impact players on the defense. You're asking them to do so much, especially with tight ends running wild now over the middle in the league. It seems like the value of the safety would have gone up, but instead it seems to have actually gone down. Not quite running back bad, but it's been devalued. I think Hamilton's floor is probably around 11, maybe to Washington. I think that's probably as far as I think he'll go. I think they would be of interest to him. maybe he slips and a team trades up to get him around that spot. I'm not sure. I could actually see Seattle at pick 9 have an interest in him just because of his length and ability to, they seem to like those type of players. So I think probably 11 is probably as far as we'll see him fall, but talent-wise, he should go higher.
Well, Jody mentioned, and you kind of echoed the most devalued position, and that's running back. Here, we're based in Philadelphia. Here, we're dealing with Miles Sanders on the final year of his rookie deal. Nobody wants to pay running backs a second contract because then all of a sudden, especially if they're successful, then you spike to money you just don't want to pay. I always joke, Brian, and we're in April here, 9 days before the draft. Nobody cares about the running game. Nobody. That they don't care about it. And when they're building their teams, they're talking about the passing game. They're talking about pass rushers. And then all of a sudden, November, December roll around, especially in the East Coast, on the East Coast, Midwest, and all of a sudden, pops up the running game starts to be important. If you can't block to run the football, if you can't hold the edge, obviously there's not going to be any running backs going in the first round of this draft. Do you think the first running back comes off the board in the second round, or could it be so devalued it happens in the third round?
I actually have a column coming out this weekend where I do like 5 bowl predictions, and one of my 5 bowl predictions was we don't see a running back drafted until the third round.
Wow.
I'm not saying it's going to happen. I mean, you could see like a team like Buffalo back into the second round fall in love with a guy like Breece Hall from Iowa State or Kenneth Walker from Michigan State. I think those are the top tier of running backs in this class. I think everybody else is a step below those two guys. Day 2 seems to be where you see a run on running backs because they don't cost as much and you can just recycle those guys in and out. I'm with you guys, by the way, never pay a running back a second contract, especially when you do pay a running back a second contract and you don't give them the ball on 3rd and 1 in the biggest game of the year at midfield when you're trying to drive to win the Super Bowl. So,
we know where you're going there.
So, but yeah, just don't do it. Just draft guys every 4 years and be done with it.
All right, need your take on this one because it's something that popped up in the last 24 hours at a couple of different draft sites. Not sure if it's on yours, but I want to see if you've heard anything. I did see it on Walter Football, Charles Campbell reporting. Devonte Wyatt dropping precipitously down draft boards, maybe even off some draft boards altogether. It's a kid that people were talking about going in the top half of the first round, who now isn't going to go round 1, might not go round 2 or 3. Different people are giving different opinions on the player's attitude and the like. What have you heard on the DT from Georgia, Devonte Wyatt? How bad do you think his stock is falling?
I haven't heard anything, like off the field issues that would cause him to drop as far as attitude. I haven't heard anything of that, but I think he maybe go lower than he may not be drafted in the first round, but I think it's going to be more of an age issue than anything. He'll be a 24-year-old rookie. And, there are a lot of teams, like I just use the Cleveland Browns as an example. They haven't drafted a player over 22 years old in the last two or three drafts. And I feel like there's a lot of teams that maybe do that. We're just not really tracking. So that's working against him. The fact that his production wasn't as high just because of where he played. Every Georgia player had to get theirs. So, maybe he doesn't have the flashy numbers or whatever, but he tested outstanding just like most every other Georgia player did. So I think probably at late first, early second is where he's going to go. I can't see him being completely off draft boards though.
Okay.
One of the positions we're focused on pretty closely here in Philadelphia, Brian, is the edge rushers. We talked about the top of the draft. The Eagles start at 15 and then they pick 18th unless they move around. So I want to talk about that second level. So, Jermaine Johnson, George Karlaftis, really, if you talk about David Ojabo, will fall a bit because of Unfortunately, the torn Achilles at his pro day. So if you look at that sort of consensus top 5, do you think there's a possibility they're all gone in that first 14 picks?
I think the one that will still be there is Karlaftis. For some reason, his name seems to be dropping. I've seen some mocks now with him completely out of the first round. Excuse me. And but I've seen some with him going late in the first round as well, to like Kansas City, maybe even Cincinnati if he's available. But Jermaine Johnson probably going to be gone before 15. If I had to guess, I've seen some mocks with him in the top 10. But I think if you're wanting one of those, the top edge guys, you're probably going to have to go up, package a couple of those picks, package 15 and something else, and go up a little bit higher to get someone like Jermaine Johnson if that's who you want. But if you're okay with Karlaftis, I think you can stand pat and get him at 15 or maybe even 18.
Team specific, position specific question for you. Eagles at number 15 and or 18, you go either way, and cornerback. If Sauce Gardner is going to be off the board, and I think we all agree that that's going to be the case, certainly by the time the Eagles come up, if they want to, they can trade up and try and get him. It's going to have to be a significant trade because we all think he's going certainly in the top 10, maybe in the top 5. Other corners that will be there, who's going to be off the board? Are they going to be legit value? If the Eagles need a cornerback with their first pick in this first round, what do you say to those who say, yeah, we got to get a corner, or no, you shouldn't get a corner because it's not good enough value? Or is it going to be a second corner gone by the time the Eagles pick?
I think the second corner will probably be gone if it's Derek Stingley from LSU. He is going to be the second corner off the board after he had his great workout at his pro day. But maybe some teams question, why has his tape been average the last couple of seasons? He's had some injuries, whatnot. So maybe he does fall to 15, or maybe the Eagles, if they want to package maybe a fourth or something to go, maybe they won't have to go up very far. Maybe he slips to like 13 or so. And, you want to secure his services. You go up a couple of spots, give up a mid-round pick. If they stay at, with the picks they have, I don't know if the value matches up. I think I'm going to have like maybe mid-20 grades on like Kyer Elam from Florida. I am a fan. His great size, great athleticism, and more of a press man style guy. So I'm not sure if that fits what Philadelphia. Andrew Booth from Clemson is another that could be in that range, and a couple of guys that have shorter arms, but I think our matchup are tremendous cover guys. Trent McDuffie from Washington, Roger McCreary from Auburn, especially Roger McCreary. He's smaller, didn't test that well, but if you go watch the tape, you especially go back to watch him against LSU against Jamar Chase. It was Jamar Chase's worst game in college, and we seen what Jamar Chase did a year ago.
Yeah. And those receivers last year, if you look at Jamar Chase and Jalen Waddle, Devonte Smith, the top of the board last year, wide receiver, was just crazy talented. It seems like the shift in the way football is played at the college level has made it easier than ever to find receivers at the top of the draft. Problem is, Brian, the Eagles haven't been able to find receivers with the exception of Devonte Smith. And it's now become a almost annual tradition that they're going to look at receiver in the draft, and it's going to be again this year. So what's Brian Bosarge's favorite flavor when you talk about Jameson Williams, Garrett Wilson, Drake London, Chris Olave, and so on?
Pre-ACL tear in the championship game, Jameson Williams was the number one receiver in this class, I think, and I still think he's going to go high. He still could be the first receiver off the board. Wouldn't surprise me, because ACL is the be-all, end-all of death knell of injuries as it was 20, 25 years ago. I do like Chris Olave slightly more than Garrett Wilson, but it's so close. All these receivers are really close for me. Wilson probably more of a technician, I guess, and with a good speed, where Olave is probably more in that better intermediate deep threat type range. Drake London's another that I really wish he could have tested. We could have got some data on him, but he also fractured his ankle, but was on pace to have a record-setting season this year. Had like something like 80 plus catches through 8 games. I mean, it was crazy production he had this year. And then Traylon Burks is another that the tape is great, but why did he test so bad? And that's kind of a knock on him.
All right, I'm going to ask you to truly thread the needle here, okay, Bry? Eagles history, quarterbacks, they either take them in the first round or the second. If they wait till day 3, yeah, they've had none of those guys pan out and eventually even be a legit backup. We don't think they're taking a quarterback in the first round. They've got the 51st pick in the draft, and they've got holes and needs. I think they can't afford to go backup quarterback again like they did with Jalen Hurts just a couple of years ago, and now he's turned out to be their starter. We're talking about the 3rd round. Not day 3, not day 1, and not even round 2 of day 2. 3rd round. Eagles actually have 2 picks, so you got a little space on your thread the needle here. You can either go with the 83rd pick or the 101st pick. What quarterback's going to be there? What quarterback would be good value for the Eagles if we believe that's probably the only place they're going to take a quarterback would be in the 3rd round? Who are your 3rd round grade quarterbacks? Who's the best of the bunch fits the Eagles?
Probably the top quarterback that'll be on the board in the 3rd round for the Eagles will be Carson Strong from Nevada. His arm, one of the best in the draft class, no doubt about it. He has had some knee issues that I believe is a question mark. I can't remember. It's one of the names. It's like really long words for what his knee condition is. I can't pronounce it or spell it. But he was so at the Senior Bowl all week. Not the best of the group there by far. Including throwing a couple really bad interceptions in the game and in practice. And he's about as mobile as I am, if we're going to be honest, which is to say not at all. So it would be complete polar opposite of what you have in Jalen Hurts as far as skill sets. So I'm not sure that they would do that. Now, you mentioned that they haven't had success on day 3. But a quarterback that 4th, 5th round that I really like in that range is E.J. Perry from Brown.
Okay.
Transfer from Boston College, was one of the most athletic quarterbacks in this draft class. And I watched 2 games of his this year and the East-West Shrine game where he was the MVP despite being on the losing team at the East-West game. But I have never seen a quarterback take a team of lesser talent and just literally put them on his shoulders and just almost will them to wins in both games. And that was a really bad team that he played for. But this guy can play. And he was, like I said, one of the most athletic quarterbacks at the combine, second only to Desmond Ridder as far as that goes. So E.J. Perry, 4th, 5th, maybe even 6th round, could be that draft and stash type guy.
Not a bad developmental project. And yeah, the Eagles could be in the mix because their 3rd string quarterback right now is Reed Sinnett. So last one from me, Brian. Want to thank you. Follow Brian at Deep Fried Draft. You see it there on the screen. I like that. What are you, South Carolina guy, I think? Deep Fried Draft?
Well, I live in Mobile. I'm from Mobile, Alabama, live in Mobile.
Okay.
But I am a South Carolina fan.
Okay, South Carolina fan. Draftcountdown.com, and I pop it up now. 9 days, 10 hours, 12 minutes, and 30 seconds to the draft. So I want to, we talked about day 3 a little bit there, Brian. If you're in a draft room and you're pounding the table for a day 3 pick, could be anywhere, offense, defense, who is Brian Bosarge's guy on day 3?
Oh, that's a tough one. Let's see. I wrote something about this the other day. Day 3, guys. I like Velus Jones, wide receiver, Tennessee, another older prospect. Was in the same draft class as Sam Darnold at Southern Cal, but he's a local kid to here in Mobile, and he didn't really develop as a receiver until this year. And playing with Hendon Hooker this year at Tennessee opened him up a little bit, had 800 receiving yards this year, but he's one of the best return men in college football and has been going back to his freshman season. But because of the COVID rules and everything, was able to play 6 years. So he's going to be a 24-year-old rookie. So that might off-put some people. I don't know if he's going to fall into day 3, but I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about at least one South Carolina guy. Kingsley Enagbare, edge rusher from South Carolina, didn't test well, but according to PFF, one of the best pass rush win rates in college football this past year. So he can get after. He's one of those big hustle guys, always seems to be around the football. Like I said, because of his testing and because of the other edge rushers you're going to see go ahead of him, could get pushed into day 3. He could be one of those guys.
All right, since you kind of bared your Carolina rooting interest here, I'm going to go there one more time because I got to admit, damn, did I look stupid this year. Watching DJ Uiagalelei when he had to fill in for Trevor Lawrence, I said, they're going to go from the first pick in the draft to the first pick in the draft. His kid's going to be number 1 2 years from now. He looked phenomenal. And then this past year, he looked pretty damn mediocre. Next year will be his draft year, and he's got the chance to refortify himself as one of the top quarterback prospects. He's not that right now. What happened to DJ Uiagalelei?
It's hard to say. Clemson lost a lot off of that team. I mean, you can see they went from playing for a national championship to playing in the Meineke Car Care Bowl or whatever that bowl game was that they played in this year against Iowa State. So, I mean, they lost a lot, skill position wise, offensive linemen. And, you see Alabama makes it look so easy. They just reload with the top guys every year. It's not supposed to be that easy when you lose a lot of guys to the NFL like they did.
All right, we'll see if Uiagalelei. I was just wowed by that player in that Notre Dame game. I still think the talent's there, but he's got to showcase it again because Stroud and Hall are way ahead of him as of next year. Oh, we're going to have you back then to talk about who the Eagles are going to be drafting with that high first-round draft pick if Harry Roseman's wheeled and dealed and got himself up to that position. I'm getting ahead of myself. We got a whole draft to go 9 days from now. You gave us great insight for us today. Thanks much for hopping on. We will talk to you again soon.
Thanks for having me, guys. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks,
Our
Brian.
pleasure. That is Brian Bosarge from draftcountdown.com. All right, we got a countdown going on here on Birds 365. Only about 6 or 7 minutes left. Come back. Help us put a bow on the show.